So I asked them for sea duty, and they sent me to an air base in Monterey, California. I stayed there almost a year, some sea duty. We had what we call some White Star mothers. There was an older guy that was just like we were really, but he had went through boot camp, so they gave him a white star on his shoulder, and we called them our White Star mothers. And you know, they mothered us, they took care of us, and slept in the same barracks that we slept in. We carried the mail. With those seaplanes, they were carrying mail from different places, and we also handled passengers, and it was mostly officers that were being transferred to different places, and they'd come aboard our ship, and we'd fly them. We had flights going out to Australia and Honolulu and all over the place, you know. We had some PBMs. They're the big plane that lights on the water, on its belly. When we were in Monterey, we were supposed to have been out of the country, because we had an FPO address, and FPO means Fleet Post Office. And of course, I could call my sister. I would call her occasionally, so they knew where I was at. I wasn't supposed to tell them that I did. I go to town to get on a payphone, you know, and I'd call my sister, collect. Well, she could afford it. She had a doctor for her husband, you know, and she lived right next door to my mom and dad. You'd get a letter looked like a piece of confetti or something like that. Yeah, they kind of particular. I don't know why. But I do know why, because we were training pilots to fly the Hellcats and the Corsairs, and that was both of them new planes, and they could outfly any plane the Japanese had. So I guess we didn't want them to know that. Well, when I was on the ship, I was in charge of the fantail. That's the back part of the ship. And when I say I was in charge, that meant I was the only one back there. So didn't that put me in charge?
Absolutely.
Well, anyway, we did some painting, and well, when the war started, they'd take all the doorknobs and paint them so they would brass and they wouldn't shine. So we'd having to sandpaper the doorknobs and get them back where they looked like brass, and we'd chip paint and mess around. It was mostly messing around, but we did do some little work. We didn't have as many people aboard ship as we should have, so we had a lot of guard duty. A lot of guard duty, especially when we were in port. Well, when we was underway, why, I had a 2-hour shift on the port side of the ship, and the ship was going up and down like that, you know, and you had to judge it or you'd get a face full of water. So when the wave came up, you duck enough that would go over your head, and wouldn't. Every once in a while, though, you'd mess up and you'd get a face full of water, and that doggone water was cold. One time we ran almost out of food, and we got hungry, and shouldn't have done it, but we got to stealing some of the rations out of the lifeboats, and we shouldn't have done that. And we did. We didn't get all of them. We just got a little bit, you know, some Spam and maybe a cookie or two, and It was kind of rough there for a while. We played a lot of cards. I was a good poker player. I made more money playing poker than I did than the Navy paid me. I had a bunch of brothers, and they all taught me how to play poker. Guam was a good place. I worked with the Seabees on Guam, and they had their own private mess hall. You could go in there and order anything you wanted to order, just like going in a restaurant. They'd bring it to you. Well, they had a program that they called the 5220, and they would give you $20 a week for 52 weeks. Well, you had to line up, and there's so many people in that line. I only went there one more time. See, I had a job waiting on me. All I had to do was go back to work for the railroad. So I stood in line for several hours to get $20, but now $20 wasn't too bad back in 1946. That's quite a bit of money. But I could make more than that working for the railroad, so that's when I came to Arkansas. They sent me to Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and I went to work in the shops down there in the signal department. See, they passed a law that wherever you worked before you went into the service, they had to hire you back. But they only had to work you about 90 days, and that's what happened to me. 90 days, they kicked me out. But it was a good deal because I went to work for Southwestern Bell the next day. I kind of enjoyed the military. I thought, well, I've seen things that I couldn't have seen any other way. And I don't like war, and but we got to have a strong military to keep from having war.